Okay, I think we're going to get started, everybody. And yes, we are recording this training this afternoon. Welcome to the K3 Literacy Assessment Training for Ames Web, for the Ames Web Assessment. We are going from 3 to 4 today. And as I mentioned, we are recording. We will be posting these resources after the webinar sometime. My name is Abe Christ from the Performance Office. I am also joined today by several of my colleagues in the Performance Office, Katie Seifert, Kim Johnson, Michelle Rosado, and I know there's also team members from the department on the call here. I believe Candice LeConte, I think I saw Kristen Allen. Welcome to my colleagues also from other areas of the department. We do, from CSDE, we have a couple things to say at the beginning of the webinar, and then we will quickly turn things over to the team who is going to cover the Ames Web topic, which is really the point of today as far as administration goes. So before we do that, we won't get too far down the road with this training. We do want to acknowledge and thank you for taking the time to make it today. I know it's not the best timing, this webinar. We are very aware that it is probably one of the busiest times of the year, so thank you to you and all of your team members that are making it here today. We wanted to get this training in before September 8th, which is technically the beginning of the fall window, which is why we started so early. But again, thank you. So why are we here today? We are here thanks to Section 10-14 TA of the Connecticut General Statutes that dictates that all public school districts serving students in K3 must select and administer an assessment from our approved menu of assessments. For those of you that weren't aware, we had approved a new menu or a revised menu as of May 7th earlier this year by the Connecticut State Board. And as you know, since you are here, your districts are using the Ames Web assessment for that. This measure this screening measure helps identify students who are at risk for reading difficulties and reading intervention, and assists in identifying students at risk for dyslexia or other reading-related disabilities. Okay, so we wanted to mention support materials and future trainings. We are here today, the 28th, from 3 to 4 of August, but we also wanted to flag you. We had promoted this in the emails that we've sent to K3 literacy contacts that there will be a results interpretation training in October after the window, in February after the window, and also in June after the window. We can drop these links into the chat in a moment. We have our link to our K3 literacy assessment website, which we're using for all things K3 literacy assessment related. It's part of our summative assessment website along with all our other assessments. And then in particular, we wanted to call out the new FAQ. I think Katie has dropped that into the chat. Thank you, Katie. We wanted to call out particular attention to the FAQ on that page that has answers to a lot of common frequently asked questions. So please take a look at that FAQ. You might, if you have a question, an urge to ask in the chat today that's more state related, state policy related, you might want to flip through the table of the contents first, because we have worked hard to outline many of the questions. I do want to mention too, we didn't create that document in isolation. That was vetted with our K3 literacy assessment committee, which consists of educators throughout the state as well as team members here from the CSDE. So we have sought input about many of the topics in that. So enough from me. I am going to now turn it over to Krista, and Krista's going to take things from Pearson for the Ames Web assessment. Krista?
Thank you, Abe, and also thank you to everyone for coming today. I know that this is a super busy time of year, so I hope everyone had a wonderful first couple days of school. So Today we're going to be talking about AimsWeb, and it's going to be an overview for you as the administrators to kind of see what you can do to have a really strong start of the year. So I always want to start with just an introduction of who's talking to you. And so my name is Chris Pupilo. I am the assessment consultant for Pearson for school and classroom assessments. Things like your screeners, your formative assessments, things like that. I'm here to support districts with it for whether it is finding a new solution or just thought partnering on different ideas. I also am a product of Connecticut Public Schools and a UConn alumni. So I'm very excited to be here with you guys and be able to support you. We're also going to have Jessica, who's going to be supporting in the chat. Because I know this is a super busy time of year, I want to make sure that your questions are answered, but we're also able to keep on moving because we're going to cover a lot today. So if you have any questions, just feel free, drop them on in, and she'll be there to support you. Today, we're going to be really talking about an overview of AimsWeb Plus, how it fits into the literacy assessment, how to get set up for the new school year, some best practices around administration, and some resources to support you and your staff members. And then we'll be closing out with Abe and the CSDE for some closing remarks. The first thing I always like to frame us in is kind of just those questions of reflection of where have we been? What does literacy assessment look like? And what do we want to see for this coming school year to make it even stronger? Even if your answer to that is because we have to, this is still a really great opportunity to elevate instruction and really increase student growth and impact them. So having this opportunity, how are we using that data effectively? One of my big mantras is always that your actions reflect your values. And if we're going to value data-driven instruction, this is a really great opportunity to use actions to show that. So overall, this session is going to be really about giving that background context, supporting you in navigation and how to move around the platform, especially in those start of the year setup systems, and then some different best practices and support. The first thing, as Abe said, is that this really is driven by our K-3 literacy assessment policy. And that's really focused on identifying students for risk of reading difficulties, including dyslexia, and really focusing on how do we identify them early and are able to support them during that time. We all know that there's a really big impact from third grade reading scores into future predictors. So this is an opportunity to catch that early and be able to give them the interventions and support they need at those foundational time periods. With the K-3 literacy assessment, it's really focusing on these 6 domains, and AimsWeb has certain measures that are going to match those domains, which will be part of the assessment menu. Each grade level does have specified assessments that can be found on that K-3 literacy assessment menu through the state. One of the updates for this year is that the Connecticut Department of Education will be collecting that performance data and publishing it on EdSite. With this, Pearson and the Department of Education will be facilitating that export process, and it will only be the winter and spring benchmarks this year. For any information on things that are needed from you as a district, that information will come from the State Department, and they'll be able to kind of guide you in anything that they may need to support this process. And when it comes to AimsWeb, it's a really comprehensive assessment program, which includes both benchmarking and progress monitoring. It's going to offer both curriculum-based measures and standards-based measures. There are 2 big areas or batteries, one being our early literacy focus, which is our pre-K to grade 1, and that is going to be those foundational literacy skills. And then as we move into 2nd grade through high school, it's going to be really focused on that oral reading fluency, reading comprehension, and vocabulary. So we do have benchmarks that are offered 3 to 4 times a year. We have fall, winter, spring, and summer. Summer is not required by the state, but it is a really great option if you are interested in your summer school interventions, ESY, being able to monitor that growth throughout the summer for those programs, and then still have the opportunity to test again in the fall. We also have the opportunity to progress monitor up to weekly with 20 different alternative forms per measure. On AIMS Plus, there is a variety of measures that are going to fall into that bucket of early literacy or in reading. So for these, some of them are required by the state, and some of them are required for your composite scores, but you do not have to give all of them if it's not required. The assessments that are on that early literacy menu, they are required and they must be administered in order to meet compliance. So making sure that you're checking to see that you're doing all of those measures is really important. So with that, I want to kind of show how to read our assessment matrix, because it can be kind of tricky sometimes when you're trying to think of what is kind of going into that composite score. Without your composite score, or without all the measures that go into your composite score, you don't receive your percentile rank either nationally or locally. So you do want to make sure that you have all of those measures if you want that percentile rank, but some of those measures are not going to be included in the literacy menu, or there may be some more. So you want to double check and against those two things. And as I said earlier, there are 4 benchmarking windows available. The Ames Web windows are going to be a lot wider than our literacy windows. So what you're going to want to look into is how to lock and unlock those assessments and make sure that you're only giving those assessments during those state policy windows. However, we do have that availability. And as I said before, we have that summer benchmark. So if you are doing summer programming, you have that option as well. So when you're looking at your assessment matrix, on here, you'll see that it's kind of a big, wide table. On your left-hand side is all of the measures. Across the top is the different grade levels, times of year. And then towards the left, you'll be able to see if it's available for progress monitoring or a survey level assessment, which is an assessment that is not technically in the grade level, but you can still test them on. You can also see the administration time, so the average time that's going to take to give that assessment, as well as whether or not it is a pen and paper measure or if it is one that's going to be done on TestNav. For the checks, you'll see those are available for that grade level. If there's an A next to it, it is required for the composite. If there's an E or an F next to it, it is going to be required for certain grade levels. So even though there are all of these options of measures, the ones that are required for the composite are going to have that either A, E, or F next to it. In our K through 3 area, we only have letter names and fluency, letter name fluency, letter word sound fluency, and then it goes on and kind of increases as we're looking at those increasing literacy skills. However, when we're looking at the K3 menu, there are going to be some additional measures that are required for students to take. So making sure that you are assigning those is going to be really important, and checking for progress that they are giving those assessments as well. So as I said earlier, that your actions reflect your value, and we really want to use that data to be able to give that data-driven instruction and really give some purpose to why we're giving this assessment. So on AimsWeb, you are going to find a lot of different reports, and so I really wanted to highlight some of the ones that will be most useful in order to get the instructional information that you need. So the first is going to be our group reports, and that's going to provide you with information and a more holistic view. So our first is going to be our benchmarked comparison view, which is going to give you the scores of all of the students. It is color-coded based on percentile rank, and it's going to give that information both on that composite level, but also by individual measure. The other group report that's going to be really great is our scores and skills plan. So this gives a group view of performance across measures. So if you were thinking of instructional planning, this is going to show you how either your classroom, your school is performing in those different areas to be able to drive instructional decisions. If you are seeing that 20% of your students are scoring below at oral reading fluency, you're going to start adding in some more small group. But if you are seeing that you are having maybe only a couple of students who are struggling with vocabulary, maybe that's going to be a different strategy that you're going to use there. And so using these 2 different reports is going to make those whole school initiatives and goal setting a lot stronger because you'll have the data to back it up. We also want to make sure that we are monitoring our students and making sure that the interventions and the plans that we're using are actually working. And so we do have a couple different reports that are really great for this as well. So the first two on this side are going to be our tier transition reports. And so the top one is going to show the tiers of students as they come in. So instead of the benchmark comparison view where it's showing you color coding by their percentile rank, this one's going to show based on where they flagged for needing tier 3 interventions, tier 2 interventions, or can they be served in tier 1. The second one with the triangles, that one's going to show you the tier transitions over time. This is a really great report if you're trying to see, are the interventions that you're using actually working? You'll be able to see if you are exiting students who no longer need interventions, or if you're starting to see kind of a ballooning in those different tiers, then maybe it's time for a different kind of shift. You also have individual monitoring, so you'll be able to see how students are progress monitoring across time and how they're growing in those measures, as well as individual tier transition reports. That's going to give you information on if a student should move up, move down, increase their interventions, or if there's a specific measure that they need extra support in. There are also a lot of individual reports that are going to be really great for those individual student conversations. So if you are talking about with parents, your SST meetings, having those conversations about what is the next step for this student, having these individual reports are going to give you that opportunity to really dive into it and be able to explain not only that they are below benchmark, but giving the why. So with that, with our benchmark and progress monitoring reports, you'll be able to see both of those different time periods, how they're performing in that specific measure. Whereas our skill plans are really going to give you a targeted instructional resource and give you those recommendations based on student performance. So it'll be able to see that what does this student need to move on to the next level, which is the exact area that they need extra support in. The snapshot is going to give you more of an at-a-glance look at all the individual measures and how kind of the holistic view of that student's individual growth and current performance. And then with our skills plans, what those are going to give you is not only kind of a breakdown of the different components of reading, because we know that reading is not just a one and done, but then also what factors may be contributing. Could it be that they're low in their reading comprehension, but really their oral reading fluency is also an area that needs to be targeted and to be able to make those intervention decisions so that we're not giving them the instruction that doesn't match their actual needs. In 2025 and 2026, we do have some exciting updates, and so I wanted to share those with you as well. So the first one is being that we do have updated norms for early literacy and reading, which includes a new composite score for pre-K and grade 1, and some expanded norms for pre-K and high school growth percentiles, and then grade-specific norms for 9 through 12. We also increased our accessibility options with text-to-speech features in reading comprehension. So for grades 2 and 3, those are enabled for questions and answer options. And then for 4 through 12, it's available only for field test items and so non-scored items. And the passages will remain without text-to-speech to preserve comprehension validity. So we want to make sure that we're not using that to invalidate those scores by impacting what they're being tested on. This is also going to be an accessibility option for students. So if you have a student whose IEP or ILP would encourage having text-to-speech for questions or those pieces, then you have that option to add it on for them as well. We also have a couple platform enhancements, including a black dot indicator for student notes. So if a student is going through intervention and they have notes, you'll now have that feature to be able to see that they have a note available and able to check. One of our great features with our progress monitoring is that you can include those notes because we know that kind of day by day, sometimes there's different things that can impact the students' scores, whether that is if they increased or decreased their intervention, or if they changed, if they had just come back from a medical leave, things like that. You can add those notes in and be able to see kind of over time how those different pieces have impacted. And so now you'll have an indicator to be able to show when there is a note. We also have a toggle added for additional demographic options. We also have two new reports. Our family report is going to be available now in English and Spanish, and we'll also have an enhanced measure breakdown and skills plan report. The measure breakdown report was created with input from current Aimsweb customers. And so it's a 3-page report that's really going to give you both an overall summary and information, but it's also going to go into a deeper level of domain level skills. So not only saying that the student is struggling reading comprehension, but which piece of it are they struggling with? Is it the main ideas in text? Is it following the story or being able to recognize the main topic of an informational text? That's going to give you a really detailed skill breakdown to be able to have those conversations with staff and with families of not only where a student is at, but why and what is going to be the next step. We do have a lot of new norms. Our early literacy norms were updated, as well as our reading norms, and some of our composite calculations have been shifted. So with the updated norms, the big purpose is to make sure that the scores that they are receiving are valid and reliable towards our current population of students. And so with that, we have a new pre-K composite score. If you have a pre-K program, you can now test them on that, as well as for high school, having those grade level specific ones. And then for our reading, if the student is in 4th through 8th or 9th through 12, and they are scoring below in a silent reading fluency, they will be having their oral reading fluency tested instead, and that will replace that component of their composite. There are some new guidance on these new norms, and the biggest point is that I really want to focus on is that the forms and test content will not change. So there's going to be no impact to that. It is only going to be impacting those percentile scores and also the way that the composites are calculated. But there is no new material or any new forms that need to be downloaded or replaced. The only update is that there is a new pre-K summer form. Overall, we did see that students were scoring lower than previous cohorts. So this is going to give us a more accurate idea of where students are actually scoring in comparison to their local and national norms, and being able to see what is actually a tier 2 student or as compared to having scores that weren't reflective of our current population. Again, these new norms only impacted reading and early literacy. What I'm going to go into now is how we're going to set up for benchmarking. This will be a refresher for some people, but for new administrators, this is going to be a really great opportunity to kind of see what steps need to be taken before you even start with students. The first one going to be, of course, your account setup. If you are a new customer or a new account, you should have received credentials from our customer support team with a welcome email to get started. And if you're logging in for the first time, you can always click username or password and submit your email. If you did not receive an email and then you try the forget username/password, please reach out to support and they'll be able to guide you through having a new active account. On the Aimsweb Plus platform, there are a lot of resources available to support you. So even though this training is going to be very quick, you do have a lot of options of how to find guides, manuals, and trainings to support you. So on every page of Aimsweb, in the bottom right corner, there is a green button that says, "How can we help?" In order to find the setup resources, you're going to click "How can we help?" And then you're going to go to Start Here. That is going to be your introduction page. It's going to give you all that information about rostering, setting up your account, user types, and how to move forward with that setup process. One of the things that you may want to do before your rostering is going to be adding those additional users. This is going to be mainly for users who are not a rostered teacher. Not only things like your technology director who may need access or your district directors, but also at the school level. And so because of that, we do have 4 different levels of users from account level, district, school level, and class level. There are also 2 different options there as a manager or teacher or as a reporter. The difference is that a manager or teacher is able to make changes, whereas a reporter can only see and view the data. If you have a school coordinator, instructional coach, your multilingual specialists or special education teachers who need to have access across grade levels, you may want to add them in as an addition in one of these additional user roles. So that way they are able to see beyond just their own classroom or their own group and be able to go at a school-wide, or if it is someone who's working at multiple schools, a district-wide level. When it comes to importing your roster, we have a couple different options. The first one is our rostering as a service. The other one is going to be our automatic batch import. And then we also have a manual import. If you are interested in either our ABI or our RAS import options, you are going to want to reach out to our tech team who will be able to support you through that process. So I've included their information here, and I'll also make sure that that is sent out to you afterwards as well. The other thing that you're going to make sure you really need is going to be that TestNav, which is our secure testing delivery application that can be downloaded onto your Chromebooks or iPads, or it can be used as a secure browser. There are some specific testing system requirements that are needed, so making sure that your systems are set up to go before that first day of testing is going to be really important. There are about 3 different types of assessments that you may see on Aimsweb, and so knowing the difference is going to be really important. Your benchmarking assessments are those 3 times a year measures that are automatically assigned when a student is added to the count, and it will be added automatically to their grade level. If a new student comes in, it'll go to whatever grade level that they're on, or if a student changes their grade level, then it's going to remove their previous test assignments and then replace them with the test assignments for the new grade. You can only unlock a TestNav benchmark test assignment for that benchmark period. Survey level assessments are for off-grade testing, which is higher or lower than a student's grade. So if you have a student that you're coming in and you are seeing that they are scoring well below grade level and you're thinking, ooh, this student has really scored below grade level in their oral reading fluency, you can unlock and assign them their nonsense word fluency to be able to see, is this a decoding struggle, and be able to guide your interventions with that. These assignments are created when you assign it. So you have the capability to choose which SLA that you are going to be providing to that student. Progress monitoring assessments are going to be another thing that you would assign yourself. You can create a schedule for it, either weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. And then whoever is on an active schedule, every Saturday at 6 a.m., their Aimsweb will update with that new test assignment for their monitoring period. In order to assign your test on your Aimsweb Plus homepage, you'd want to go up to Account Management in order to select which ones that you would have. And so again, benchmarking, it'll be automatic, progress monitoring, or for SLAs, you will assign yourself. Going back to our benchmark comparison view, while this is also a really great data reporting tool, it's also great for monitoring fidelity of completion and making sure that students are being tested, where you're at in completion, and also being able to see if students have locked or unlocked their tests. This is also where you're going to be able to see their overall measures to determine if you want to move forward with a survey level assessment. On this benchmark screen, you'll see a pink alert. That is a student who it's an alert that they be someone that is recommended for some progress monitoring in a certain area. With this, in the area that says assess, there's going to be 3 different icons. The first one would be locked, and it's going to be a blue ticket. The second is going to be unlocked, and it'll be a green ticket. And then the little black gear, that's going to say that there's no test assigned. If a student has a locked assessment, you can either click the student record box and click unlock, or you can click the blue assess button and then it'll unlock in the pop-up. If an assignment is unlocked, then the student is able to access that. But if you would like to lock that assessment, then you could click the student record box, or again, click at the top of the screen. If you see that black gear, that means that there is no test assigned. And so you'd want to manually create an assessment by clicking that icon, and then in the pop-up, click assign. With that, then they will now have an assessment assignment and be able to take their test. You also have the ability to print your assignment list and tickets, again, in that account management, and then you're going to go down to test assignment list. The system will assign a credential for a student to sign in. It will be one credential for all of their assessments during that period. So if a student has 3 different measures that are being tested on, you do not have to have individual login for each measure. That one test login will follow the student through all of their assignments. With Aimsweb Plus, there are 2 different types of assessments or assessment delivery options. The first one's going to be your test nav, which is going to be the one that they take on the computer, and it is individual. We also have digital record forms and stimulus materials for certain measures. There are digital record form materials available for all the measures that you see, and all of the pre-K through grade 1 measures will be used in a digital record form. This is also available on the platform. So just like when you were looking for the setup guides, you would go and press that green button, how can we help? And then you would go on up and click those test materials, and all those benchmark stimulus materials will be available for you. We also have training accounts available. So if you would like in the training account to be able to practice, play around with some demo students, you do have that option. So feel free to email me after this presentation and I can give you that login information and some additional guidance on how to use and navigate the demo platform. Next thing we're going to talk about is going to be those best practices for administration. So you have the platform, you're all set up, but how do you make it successful for your staff and for your students? We know that there's no bigger deterrent for fidelity than frustration. So having a good plan of action to move forward is going to be a really big step in making sure that the assessments are given with fidelity and that there's investment across the board. The main 3 ideas is always going to be make sure that you have that training first, making sure that teachers and staff know exactly how to give those assessments, making sure that they're giving them with accuracy and sticking to the prompts to make sure that there is no deviation, and making sure that we have those training available. The next is going to be making sure that everyone is aware of their role in the testing. With the testing, a lot of times we kind of always think like, oh, the classroom teachers will do it. But then there's a lot of different certain special circumstances where having a plan beforehand is really great. So knowing, is the multilingual specialist going to be testing the multilingual student? Is the special ed teachers going to be testing their caseload? And what is the expectations when it comes to reporting the fidelity, printing reports, things like that? I always used to say that an expectation that's set is an expectation that's met. So making sure you have that plan beforehand is going to be really vital in making sure that everyone is operating and knows what to do. And of course, making sure that you are technically ready, making sure that the test nav is downloaded, headphones are available, and that all staff members are provided with a Pearson customer support number for in-the-moment tech support. When it comes to when you're in the platform and needing that customer support, they're going to be the ones who are able to respond and support right in the moment instead of kind of having different ways of doing it. So making sure that your staff has those numbers to just be able to call is going to be the best way to make sure they're supported. So as we're going through that timeline before testing, about 6 to 8 weeks, you really want to make sure that you finalize your rosters and have them uploaded and ready to go. So ensuring that all the student and staff data is accurate and ready for import. And then also you're going to want to make sure that you gather that accommodations information so you know what is coming up in or who you're going to be assigning accommodations to. I apologize if my computer decided that it was a really great time to shut down. So again, being tech ready is really important. Making sure. Please make sure that my screen is sharing again.
Your screen's being shared, Krista.
Perfect. Okay. So the second thing you're going to want to do is confirm your licensing. So making sure that you have enough licenses for the students that you will be testing, and making sure that you are accounting for the additional RAN licenses as well. If you have Ames Web Complete or the reading, that is not going to include RAN. So you are going to want to make sure that you have those licenses in order to complete all of your testing. When it comes to your licenses, they are only consumed when a test is started. So if you are using them with your students, then then you will be able to know how many students and licenses that you have. And the next is going to be that you want to make sure that you are scheduling your training. So making sure that your staff members are trained on how to accurately administer those assessments and navigate the platform. And then if you have any professional learning that you would like from Pearson, making sure that you're booking those PD sessions. Two to 4 weeks before testing, you're going to want to provide those practice opportunities, which can include using those sandbox accounts for training and for practice, ensuring that you are technically ready, making sure your test nav is working, making sure you have those headphones prepared, and then making sure that your ClassLink or Assist exports are ready for setup. You're also going to make sure that your print materials are ready and good to go, and setting up those digital record forms. This is also a great time to set up those accessibility options and including those text-to-speech options to be able to support diverse learners without compromising that validity.
Krista, I need to stop you for a minute. Some people
Yes.
can see. If you could give us a thumbs up where it says react on the top bar to let us know whether you can see or not.
You can see.
Perfect. All right. Continue, Krista. Sorry about that.
And then the week before is going to be a lot about that communication and making sure the materials are ready. So you're going to want to finalize and communicate your testing schedule, making sure that all staff members are aware of who they're testing, the accommodations that need to be received, and which measures are going to be tested. If you're using a tracker to monitor completion, making sure that they know who is, I'm going to reshare this because I think.
Krista, now you're muted. All right, testing. Can people hear my voice? Thumbs up, please. Good. Thank you, Andrea. All right. And then the people in the chat, Hopefully you can hear again. So we just need you to reshare, please. Now it looks like she's having technical difficulties.
I really
Jess?
appreciate everyone's patience, and I
Oh.
think, can everyone hear and see me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we could, yep, we could see it. Thanks, Krista.
Perfect. I apologize again, everyone. And so you really want to make sure you're communicating with families and also communicating with students so that they know what is coming up and are ready. Creating a strong testing schedule is going to be really impactful to making sure that everyone knows where they need to be and making sure that everyone has a good idea of those responsibilities. You have a couple different options there, especially when you're thinking of those younger students in order to reduce that testing anxiety or testing fatigue. You can do what's called modular scheduling, where you can break those benchmarks into manageable chunks. So, for example, doing day 1, only testing letter sounds, day 2, testing oral reading fluency, and making sure that you're including those makeup days for absent students. So that way you are going to complete all students within that smaller benchmark window. And then during testing, you really want to focus on making sure that you are maintaining the fidelity of administration, making sure that teachers are providing the assessments accurate to the prompts, monitoring that completion and that data quality, supporting students with accessibility tools, and then keeping a log and documenting any issues or testing irregularities. Another great part is going to make sure that you are building a positive experience for students, because we know that if we are in those testing sessions and the students start to either click through or not putting in their best effort, you will have a ballooned RTI system where some students are going to be qualifying in who may not necessarily need it. So making sure they understand the purpose of the assessment, setting up the environment so it's quiet and distraction free, avoiding testing during those high stress times, providing that individual support, and then following up with celebration and having data chats with students. One thing that I did in my classroom was whenever it was testing day, we always started with writing affirmations to themselves and really building in that investment with them. And also by providing effort tickets, which will also encourage your staff to be actively monitoring students during testing. During the testing setup process and administration, there may be times where you need a refresher or you want to just double check on something. So there are a lot of available resources available in the AimsWeb Plus platform. These include quick step guides and tutorials, administration and scoring videos, some recorded webinars, guides, manuals, some different navigation tools, and access to our customer and technical support. And again, all of these are going to be available by pressing that How Can We Help button. And with that, when you go on up to the top, you go to Manuals and Training, that is where you'll find all of those support tools to help with those refreshers. One is going to be our comprehensive manual. That's going to give you an introduction to AimsWeb, the testing guidelines and interpretation, some best practices, and how to administer and score different assessments, as well as give you some additional features. This is currently being updated, so it will be continuously added back onto the platform as we update with our new norms, but it is available to kind of get an insight into administration, scoring, and interpretation. Another great tool that we have is going to be our training videos and manuals. And so there are over 30 videos covering benchmarking, progress monitoring, scoring for the individual measures. You'll be able to see and hear what it looks like to give that assessment or what it looks like on the student side. And you'll be also able to check in with videos for best practices. Most of these videos are 2 to about 7 minutes long, and they're just an easy refresher as you're going through. If you're thinking, I don't remember what I was supposed to mark on this oral reading fluency, you can always check back in with that. We also have quick step guides and videos, and these ones are going to be more for those step-by-step instructions of how to navigate the platform. So those key tasks like searching students, comparing the benchmarks, and being able to administer different measures on the different platform. And it's going to give you printable PDFs and some short videos. We do have some on-demand webinars, which are a condensed version of our general webinars that are going to be available for viewing at any time, especially knowing that we all have some very busy schedules in schools. So being able to fit that in where you can, and they are time-stamped. So if you're looking for specific information, you will be able to find it. The webinars may be from a little bit before, but they have been updated to match the current platform or the new updates and enhancements. Once a month, we also have a customer forum. This is going to be a live open webinar that's going to either cover a different topic or give you some insight into some new updates on the platform. The previous customer forums are going to be available as a recording on the platform, but then you can also register directly from that site if you would like to join in. It gives you an opportunity to hear from other districts and be able to share best practices and also learn about new things or new practices that are happening with AIMSweb. There will also be some sponsored training opportunities that are provided by the State Department for a couple of our administrators per district to make sure that you are also being aware it's going to be very focused on interpreting that data. With that, we do know that even with having those little mini tutorials, sometimes having a strong training is what makes the difference between having a strong implementation year or having a lot of frustration and change anxiety within your staff. And we also know that when you are invested and build that up in the beginning, then it's going to help with your staff members feeling more confident as they go into testing. With our Pearson experts, they are going to really be able to give you that background information. They're going to be able to understand the different components of the platform, be able to show. They'll be able to provide some hands-on support and some strategic implementation, including using your own data to talk through interpretation, next steps, and what would be the best next process for your school and district. So we do have 4 main different training options. We have our benchmarking and progress monitoring essentials, which is really going to be that administration training of how to give the assessments, how to navigate the platform, how to move about the different measures and processes. Then we have our data utilization for both benchmarking and progress monitoring. That is going to be more focused on now we have the data, now what? So this one's going to be focused more on how do you read the reports, how do you analyze the data, and how do you use that data to move into next steps for instructional practices. We do have an overall kind of training calendar of what, especially in your first year of implementation, really supports. So beginning with the beginning of the year with that benchmarking, providing that essentials training, and then as the year goes on, moving into progress monitoring. And once you see really strong mastery of those 2 components, moving into the data utilization. So first half of the year really focused on fidelity, and then the second half of the year really focused on that enhancement and improvement. One option that we also have is our live Q&As, which provides a 1-hour consultation. It's a 1-hour live coaching consultation, which provides a opportunity for staff members to check in with one of our present trainers. It is very much tailored to what you need or what they're interested in that moment, and is a really great way, especially as they're moving through testing, to relieve some of that testing and change anxiety, to know that, okay, in a couple weeks, you will have the trainer here to be able to ask questions to, and so that way they can bring it to them. And with our professional learning, we do offer live webinars, on-demand learning modules, in-person trainings, and as well as those live coaching and consultation Q&As. And we also do offer some live webinars for individual participants. So if there are just a couple teachers who may be ready for moving into that data utilization, or if you as an administrator want to kind of get a refresher yourself, you can sign up for those. And we do have quite a few that are coming up very shortly. And so with that, all this information I will make sure is shared out with you as a resource, but you also have a full Pearson team here to support you. Me as your assessment consultant, Alexandra, who is your renewal specialist, and Rohini, who is your Pearson Success Partner, who will support with that implementation and onboarding processes. And that is all I have for today. So I really want to say thank you for joining. Thank you for bearing with me through our little tech difficulties. And I'm going to turn it on back to Abe for some closing remarks.
Krista, thank you. Thank you for rallying through that tech stuff. I think we've all been there, so you did an amazing job, so thank you. We just wanted to, again, say thank you to all of you for taking the time today, and we do have a couple minutes left in the meeting. If there are any questions, happy to take them over the chat, or we can unmute you and you can also ask them verbally, whatever works for you. Or if not, we can call it an afternoon and that'll be it. Okay, I'm going to drop our student assessment email into the chat here. If you have any questions, you can, I'm sure many of you have our direct emails, but I see some questions coming in, of course. I know you have our direct emails. If you do have a question generally about this assessment or any assessment for that matter, there's our general inbox. How much time do you anticipate this taking a classroom teacher administrator? Krista, do you want to take that one? Linda, yes, I can stay on.
When it comes to our K through K1 assessments, which does have more assessments, generally they're between 2 to 3 minutes per assessment per child. And that includes giving the instructions.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Krista. All right, hearing no more, I guess we'll call it a webinar. Thank you again, everybody. And Linda, I'm happy to stay on here for a few minutes. Oh, wait, if you're already using other assessments, line the state approved, do we still need? Kelly, it's your choice. One of the assessments in the menu, either from Pearson or the Easy CBM assessment or the Amplify assessment has to be chosen, or the Acadience assessment. One of those four has to be used for state purposes. Jessica, yeah, that's correct. Our goal is, I believe that you do have to, there is an action in terms of you're going to have to agree to that. But basically, if you agree, and I'm not familiar with the exact process, I know Pearson's reaching out to districts to sign an agreement that basically says it permits Pearson to share this data with us. We're working with Pearson to then take that data. So you should not have to provide this data in a customized way to CSDE. Kelly, yeah, so if you're using another assessment, such as assessment listed there, again, that wouldn't qualify in terms of the K3 assessment. It has to be one of the approved ones. Katie, you want to take a swing
I
at
was
that
just
one?
gonna say, I'll take that one, Abe. Yeah. So any accommodations for any district or state testing do need to be documented within the student's IEP or 504 plan. So this would be done since this is considered a district assessment, this would be documented within the district assessment area of the IEP or 504 plan for testing accommodations. However, just to a cautionary, you need to make sure that these are allowable accommodations for the assessments. And what Pearson allows is allowable accommodations for their assessments. Because you don't want to give an accommodation that's going to either change the construct of the assessment or that it's not allowed by the assessment vendor or publisher. So teams need to be aware that although there may be accessibility features that are done during instruction or on other summative assessments for students, we always have to be aware of what is allowable for specific tests so it doesn't change, like I said, the construct of the assessment. And, you can always feel free to reach out to me, Michelle, via my email.
Thanks, Katie.
Kate, I do want to mention that this is brand new for this year. Accommodations are trackable on the student profile and fully exportable. So that is a brand new feature for AIMSweb Plus. So you can actually track that for any accommodation that may be given while assessing a student. It is brand new for this year. We want to make sure that that's completely capturable in all of your reporting as well.
Thank you, Andrea.
You bet.
All right. I think we'll officially call that a webinar, and thank you again for taking the time to attend today, and have a great afternoon.